Visions 2020. Technology and Services for the Blind, Visually Impaired, and Physically Disabled. Technology Talk with JJ Meddaugh of AT Guys.
Hi there everyone, this is JJ Meddaugh. For several years now, I've done these What's New in Assistive Technology talks at Visions in Ann Arbor, and I'm sad that we aren't able to do this one in person. It's so much fun to come and talk to everyone and hang out and talk about the latest in access technology. But we can still do this thing virtually. So I am sitting here in front of my computer at my house, I'm kind of working from home like everybody else is right now. And my goal is to kind of give you some of the updates in access technology. A little background on me for those of you who might be new to this whole thing. I am an AT specialist, trainer, user, consumer, and pretty much a geek. So I run a company called AT Guys. We are also in the vendor hall, the virtual vendor hall, if you will. So you can go check us out over there at AT Guys or atguys.com. I also host a podcast with Joe Steinkamp called the Blind Bargains Qast. It's a podcast focusing on technology, news and reviews, issues, and all sorts of other stuff. Emphasis on the other stuff sometimes. It can be really interesting. We talk about anything from random new features in your latest iPhones to what people are consuming as far as the latest snack food. So we're all over the place, but it is a tech-forward and tech-focused podcast. So if you want to get that, just ask your assistant of choice to say, listen to the Blind Bargains Qast, or you can go to our website at blindbargains.com and you can listen to that. So we're here virtually. I'm sitting at my house. I don't have a fancy Zoom background or anything like that. So the background that you would be seeing is pretty much what's behind me. So you're going to might hear some occasional noise off to the side as people drive by. We try to mask that out, but that's around here. So I do live near the train tracks, so you might hear the train come by a little bit. So, all these things that you kind of get from working from home, right? It's a little bit different, but doesn't stop us too much from talking about access technology. Behind me is just pretty much my kitchen. I'm sitting in front of my computer, and we're doing a lot of things remotely, right? It's all over on Zoom and such. So what we're going to do is cover some of the latest advancements in cell phones, in speakers, some of the other technology that's out there, some of the offers that are available to people that are blind or visually impaired. We'll also give our contact information at the end as well, and I'm sure it'll be linked up in the video as well. So if you have any questions, normally we'd have a nice big Q&A section about halfway through or more. So if you have questions, just let us know. We're happy to help you out, and you can send us a message, and we'll do our best to try to answer your questions. So, without further ado, let's kind of get into some of the latest. Well, the latest obviously is COVID-19, and that has meant changing the way that we do a lot of things, whether it's going to class, now virtually, going to work, now virtually, doing a conference like Visions, well, now virtually. Pretty much everything is virtual now. That's also true in the world of technology. So the things that used to be in person, like going to our state conventions for the blindness organizations or the major technology conferences, they're becoming all virtual, at least for now. So the two major technology conferences next year, the beginning of next year, the Assistive Technology Industry Association Conference in January and the CSUN Assistive Technology Conference in California in March, have already announced that they're going to be all virtual. So it's going to be a little more difficult to try to see what's new in technology in person. So it's just going to be a little more of a challenge to try to get your hands on things, right? Because I know it really can be useful to, in person, feel what new technology feels like, especially when it comes to things like a Braille display or a phone. There isn't a dealer in every single city to have one of these things. So we'll try to do our best to describe things virtually as kind of adapt to this whole changing landscape of what's going on. If you hear a little pause, by the way, I do have some water here as well, and we could try to edit these little things out, but let's just be natural, right, and do it for what it is. So there we go. We got some water, so I can keep going here. So when it comes to the latest in technology with COVID-19, a lot of things that we're doing are meetings. and doing everything virtually and online. So Zoom has been the word of the year when it comes to virtual technology and meetings. We're doing it all on Zoom. There are other platforms as well for virtual meetings. Google Meet is one. Microsoft Teams has one as well. And there are others like WebEx. The good news is most of these are accessible. When I say something that is accessible, what I'm meaning is a blind or visually impaired user should be able to use the technology, given they know how to use a computer or a phone or etc. So when we say something is accessible, it means it is usable. It's compatible with the screen reading software that's out there for the phone or computer. So Zoom is the most popular and probably has done the most for accessibility over the past 6 months to a year. So what happens if you have it on your Windows computer or Mac is you can tab through the different things, whether it's the microphone on and off, the all-important mute button, to user settings or the chat box, determining what's going on in chat. One of the things that becomes really important in Zoom is understanding who is coming and going and what people are saying in the chat. Sometimes that can be very useful. Sometimes if you're in a large meeting, that can be very verbose and kind of annoying. So Zoom actually has settings now that you can go into. If you go into your Zoom settings under accessibility, you can turn off those notifications. So if you don't want to hear who's coming and going in a meeting or who's coming and going in chat, you can turn those things off. You can also run Zoom on a phone, on an iPhone or an Android device, and it pretty much works the same way. So if somebody sends you a Zoom link, you can click on that link. When I say click on for a blind person, that usually means double tap on the link on your phone or just select it on your computer. It'll bring you into the Zoom meeting. If you haven't used Zoom before, it'll download a quick applet and then it'll bring you into the meeting. It's very simple to use, and the apps on all the different platforms are accessible. It doesn't really matter at this point whether you're using Zoom or Google Meet or others. Yes, they're all a little bit different as far as the interface, but they are accessible. Google Meet works quite well as well. What I might recommend if you're going to be doing a lot of talking in a meeting is to get an external microphone for one. I'm talking into an external microphone plugged into a mixer, into a computer. So that's a bit of more advanced setting, but you can also get USB headset microphones as well. Same thing with the phone. You can also get a microphone plugging into your phone. You will sound better on a wired microphone, generally speaking, than a wireless one. Without getting too far into the weeds, the wireless technology, Bluetooth, doesn't always bring the best audio quality as far as microphones. They're designed for making phone calls and they're designed for listening to music. So if you want to sound good, if you're going to be presenting in a Zoom meeting, the best move is to get a wired microphone plugging it into either a computer or a phone. Wearing headphones is also very important here too, because if you're using a screen reader, you don't want others to hear your screen reader audio as it's talking and as it's reading things on the screen. So I wear headphones and I have a microphone, and it makes it a lot easier for me to manage Zoom. I like doing it on the computer over the phone because there's that hotkey for muting and unmuting, Alt-A, that you can use, and your screen reader will tell you if you are muted or unmuted. And it will even try to tell you sometimes if you are talking while you are muted, it'll say, hey, just to let you know you're muted right now. So it'll actually do that as well. So that can be very useful. And of course, it depends on what platform you're using. What can you do for free? Zoom lets you do meetings of up to 40 minutes for free without a paid account. Or you can have a meeting with one other person for longer than 40 minutes. Where you have to pay for Zoom is if you want to have a meeting of more than 40 minutes with more than 2 people. So if you want to have a group meeting and run it for an hour, that's where you need an account. It's about $15 a month. And you can host one meeting at a time. So if you and some friends wanted to share one, you could do that. You know, if you were hosting meetings at different days or times, as long as your meetings weren't overlapping, you could do that with a pro Zoom account. Google Meet has kind of similar plans. They're updating it as over time as far as what you get for free and what you have to pay for. Sometimes there's been extra things given out for free because of COVID. So just kind of check the different services that are out there for those things. For group meetings, though, I think it's definitely a good way to go. And it's a vast improvement over the old telephone conference lines that you'd call into, which can be really hard for people to understand and to listen to. For those that really are stuck to the phone though, and don't have computer skills or phone skills, that's okay. Zoom provides a dial-in way as well as the other conference systems. So you can call into a phone number. Usually I put an access code and maybe a password, and then you can connect to the meeting over the phone. So that's also available as well. And it provides another way for people to access that information. As far as other COVID-19 stuff that's been going on, a lot of the thing is really paying attention to the news and what's going on. I do a lot with Twitter myself, and that's a very techie way of doing things because I can kind of follow the various news sites. So if you were to follow the Michigan Gov, MIGov Twitter, for instance, that would be the official source for knowing what's currently allowed, and as the different orders and things have been updated over time, they have been tweeting them. You can also do the same thing by keeping up with news sources or following, say, if it's a university or a local unit of government. It's really important to stay up to date with the latest news. And of course, if you have a smartphone, you will get alerts, emergency alerts, if there is a change. For instance, when there was the stay home, stay safe orders, we got alerts on our phones that would speak as well. And when I say speak, it speaks with a screen reader, and that would tell you what's going on with the alert. So, a lot going on. There's various stat trackers that are online for getting COVID-19 statistics if you want that information. And of course, you can go to the various websites for recommendations and things like that. So aside from COVID, there still has been a lot of new technology. The last time we did this was May of 2018. So it's been a minute since then, and I wasn't going to look and see exactly what came out exactly since May 2018. I'm going to talk about a couple of the things that have really caught my attention over the past year or two. We'll start with the classic question of smartphones. This is one that we do every time I do one of these sessions, but the answers have probably changed a little bit. So, like before, you have a couple different ways you can go for the question of what is a good phone that a blind or visually impaired person can use. Well, the good news is most phones that are out now have some degree of accessibility, some better than others. The iPhone is still probably the gold standard for accessibility. And there's some new features in iOS version 14 that make it even cooler, and I'll talk about that in a second. So the latest iPhones are just coming out mid-October. The iPhone 12 is getting announced, so that's being announced a bit after this recording, depending on when you're watching it. But that's the latest phones that are out there. But Apple is selling phones all the way from the iPhone SE Special Edition 2020 for $399 to some of their newer iPhones, the current 11s and probably the 12s. There'll be some that are over $1,000. The good news is most of them have most of the same features when it comes to accessibility and screen readers and other things like that. So, of course, every iPhone comes with VoiceOver. VoiceOver is the piece of software that lets you have the screen spoken to you. So as you move your finger around the screen, it'll read whatever you touch your finger to. And if you want to actually activate what you just heard, you tap twice on the phone, and then it will open up what you just heard. So there's different gestures. You swipe right for the next item, you swipe left for the previous item, etc., etc. That's been around for a while now, and every iPhone since 2009 has had that. So you could buy the new iPhone, you could buy an iPhone from a year or two ago, and you're going to get most of the same stuff. So there's a rare case this year where there is a new VoiceOver feature that actually does require one of the newer phones. In this case, you have to have the iPhone 11, or I'm sorry, the 10R, or the 11, or the SE 2020. Essentially one of the newer phones that has what's called the A13 chip in it. It's a Bionic chip, and what this chip helps you do is a new feature called voice recognition, or voiceover recognition, voiceover recognition. So what this will attempt to do is make apps work that didn't work before. So let me explain what that means. When you download an app and put it on your phone, many apps will speak out of the box. In other words, when you move to the icons on the screen, VoiceOver will read what they are. So if you get a major app, say like a news app or Dropbox or Twitter or Facebook, VoiceOver will generally read most of that stuff because it has been coded in such a way that people you can navigate it with VoiceOver. Well, some apps aren't like that, and for some reason, without getting too technical, you can't access them, or you couldn't until now. So what VoiceOver tries to do now is there's several new image recognition tools where it will try to describe the screen, and then it will try to figure out what's on the screen, and then if it sees something, say, that looks like a button, it will make it into a button, and then VoiceOver can use it. It does the same thing with images. It does a lot more image recognition now. So if you're going through photos on Instagram, for instance, which you would think would be something that wouldn't be too accessible in the past, well, now you can use the image recognition, and it will actually try to do a better job of recognizing the image. So it's a new feature. It's still, of course, being fine-tuned. It's not going to work everywhere. Sometimes you might even want to turn it off, depending on what you're doing. But I mentioned that because it is a feature that you have to have the iPhone 11, 10R, SE 2020, and assumably the iPhone 12s. So if you have an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 8, while those phones will still get iOS 14, the latest version of the iPhone's operating system, those phones will still have that. You won't have that feature. One feature that you will have, though, that's pretty cool, always when you move the camera around, if you opened up your camera app on your phone and you took a picture of something, it would say, the iPhone would say, one face or two faces, top of screen. So it kind of helps you line up faces. Well, now it tells you about other things that it sees in the picture too. So when I was waving it around the area around me, it saw computer, and then it saw desk, furniture, keyboard, ceiling fan. The iOS software recognizes this stuff, and it kind of tells you what's in the picture. So it kind of gives you at least a general idea. It's not going to be precisely detailed, but it gives you a general rundown idea of what's in the picture, what it's seeing right now. And so you can also just use it for some simple object recognition. So that's kind of cool. It's an interesting little feature. I have an older iPhone 7, and it's in that phone. It works there. So that one will work in pretty much any iPhone that you have, any phone that gets iOS 14 or newer. So that is the iPhone 6S or greater. So pretty much any of those iPhones. But the question is, if you're going to buy an iPhone now, I would definitely try to get the current year phone. There's a reason you would get the SE 2020. That is the smaller phone. Many people are choosing that one, especially people who are blind, because it has a fingerprint sensor. I am with that group. I think fingerprint sensor is more accurate than Face ID, just because it's a little easier to use and a little quicker. As you pull the phone out of your pocket, you can just touch your finger to it and it will unlock. Some of the other phones, like the iPhone 11, have Face ID only. They do not have a fingerprint sensor, so you have to use Face Unlock, and which is fine. You can look at it and it's accessible, but it's a different thing. So if you're not as used to it, it would be something new that you'll have to get used to. That's iPhone. Android. Android's come a long way as well, and I know I've said that before. The latest version of Android is Android version 11, and there's a few things of note. One, TalkBack is getting a pretty major overhaul. It's still not available yet, but it was announced by Google that it's going to be getting an update. And what they're doing to TalkBack is changing a lot of the gestures to what we call multi-finger gestures. So in TalkBack, if you ever try to use it, some of the commands use right now what are called these L-shaped gestures. So you have to go down and then right, or up and then left. And for some people, that's been very confusing. Very confusing. So the new version of TalkBack that's coming out is going to allow for multi-finger gestures. For instance, 2-finger double tap and 3-finger double tap, or 2-finger swipe to the right or swipe to the left. So that is very similar to what iOS has. It won't be the exact same. It's going to be different, a little bit different, but it will allow you to get to many more commands with gestures that should be easier to use and to implement on your phone. So that's one thing that is Android version 11. We're not sure on the TalkBack how far back, if you're going to have Android 11 to use those gestures, or if you can do it with an older version of Android. Because TalkBack is a separate thing. By the way, TalkBack is a screen reader. I guess I glossed over that. TalkBack's a screen reader on Android, so it's like VoiceOver on the iPhone. There are many other things on Android that have happened recently. One is a version of Braille screen input. So now, on both iPhone and Android, you can type on your phone using Braille. So essentially, you take your fingers, you tap on the top of the phone like you were typing on a Braille writer, and the phone will do its best to figure out what dots you were trying to touch and then type it in Braille and read it back to you. So it takes a little bit getting used to, but some people swear by it. They love the feature as far as ways of typing in Braille and moving around in Braille. There's different commands for space or deleting the current word, etc., things like that. So that's a new Braille screen input method that's now available on Android. It's also available on iOS. Another thing for Android that's new, or relatively new, is an app called Lookout. Lookout is a free app that is available on now all Android devices running Android 6 or above. So that should be anything in the last few years. And it's the Android version of what people use on iOS. They use a thing called Seeing AI. Seeing AI, like Lookout, lets you identify text and objects and food and other stuff that's around you. So for Lookout for Android, you can read short text, you can read documents, you can identify food by waving your camera in front of the food, and it will try to tell you either what the food is, or it'll say, I don't see anything, turn the box over. It'll do currency, and it will do objects. I think the food and the quick read mode are the two that work the best. So like I mentioned on Apple, Seeing AI does something kind of similar. The quick read on Seeing AI is very efficient. I think the food mode on Lookout is better because it doesn't try to see a barcode. It just tries to match up what it sees on the box or the can with its database of food without even going online. So I think for me, that's been a little more efficient for trying to identify food, and I can kind of just wave it through. It'll pick up on Meyer brand stuff or local supermarket things, not just the big chains. And it really becomes a useful way for identifying stuff. Another app for iOS and Android both that has come out in the past year or two is Voice Dream Scanner. Voice Dream Reader is an app that's been around for a few years to read books on your phone, whether it's from a service like Bookshare or whether it's a PDF or an EPUB book file. Well, now there's an app called Voice Dream Scanner, and that is designed for taking pictures of things and reading the text. Obviously, it's not the first scanning app, but I think it's the best. First of all, it's pretty cheap. It's about $7 or $8, depending on when you get it. Plus, it also does not send your text or your pictures to the cloud. In other words, when you take a picture of something, it will figure out what it says, the optical character recognition, right on your device. It doesn't have to need to contact the internet to figure out what's in your image. I think that's very important, both for security and privacy reasons, and also just for speed. Makes it really fast to identify whatever text you're trying to read. It'll help guide you to take a good picture, so it'll beep or just like a little humming sound to kind of point you in the right direction of what you're trying to read. And like I said, it's the best one. It's the best one. I know there's other apps that have been out there. There's some that we've paid a lot of money for in the past, but Voice Dream Scanner is it now. It will integrate right with Voice Dream Reader, and like I said, it's under $10. While we're talking about smartphones, a couple other just cool little apps that have come out over the past little while. On the iPhone, there's an app called Clue, C-L-E-W. Clue is an app to help you retrace your steps. So, say we're in the regular hall at the library. It can be a pretty confusing building sometimes. And, there's some great volunteers out there, but sometimes you just want to, go somewhere by yourself, right? Well, if you load up Clue, say you're walking from a table to outside somewhere. Say you're going to walk a block down the street even and make a couple turns and go somewhere. Well, open up Clue at the beginning of that trip, and it will track where you're going using augmented reality, AR. And then when you're done, when you've made it to where you want to go, you tell Clue that you want to go back to where you came from, it remembers. So it uses AR and other information to guide you back. And it's accurate. It is, really accurate as far as locating you and telling you, in 5 feet, turn left, etc., etc. So that's very exciting for us. There's a new app that's, I'm going to just let you know this is coming. Indoor navigation is starting to expand. There is a new app called Good Maps. from the people that used to make Nearby Explorer. They kind of split off part of APH into their own company. Good Maps is doing indoor navigation and a bit of outdoor as well. So you can get the app now for iOS for free. There's no indoor buildings yet in Michigan, but that's technology that's on the horizon. I think by the time I do one of these talks next time, we'll have a lot more talking to do about indoor navigation. There are still other good apps for GPS. Of course, you can use Google Maps as a GPS app. I think it's very useful. Nearby Explorer is a free one for telling you where you're at and giving you accessible directions and information about buildings that are around you. So that's another great one. Some people still like to do some of the pay apps like Blind Square GPS. And then Microsoft has one called Soundscapes that's on the iPhone that you can use, and you can wave around your phone. It will tell you what's nearby in whatever direction you point your phone. So there's a lot more apps and different tools that are kind of appearing on smartphones. That's a smartphone. What if you don't want a smartphone? We understand that some people just don't want to deal with the touchscreen. And there are other options for you. Well, first of all, there are ways to make the touchscreen a little easier. So if you have an iPhone, you can get a tactile screen overlay. And that is a thing that you stick on your phone, and you can have kind of locator dots. There are several different layouts that are out there, and one of them is the phone keypad layout, which lets you dial phone numbers a lot easier. So if you stick that on your phone, it's like a screen protector. And then you can use your fingers around the phone to kind of locate various locations on your phone via dots that kind of feel like Braille. You can also connect the keyboard. So you can do Bluetooth keyboards. There are full-size keyboards. There are small folding keyboards. There are keyboards that will connect onto your phone like as a keyboard case. There's a bunch of different ways that you can go as far as a keyboard. Most keyboards for your phone, or pretty much all, are Bluetooth wireless keyboards. So they would connect wirelessly to your phone, meaning you don't even have to have the phone in front of you. You could have the phone 10, 15 feet away and have the keyboard, and it will work just fine. So you connect to your phone. The keyboard itself doesn't make any noise. The phone talks. So when you type on your keyboard, you hear what you are typing through your phone. So it's just like having a computer keyboard or keyboard on a computer. When you do the typing, you hear the speech through your computer or the Braille. Speaking of Braille, you can also connect a Braille display. So there are a variety of Braille displays that are out there that you can connect to your phone. There's a couple new ones out there this year from APH. One called the Chameleon and one called the Mantis. So the Chameleon is a 20-cell Braille display that you can connect to your phone or your computer. And it's kind of a hybrid between a Braille display and a note taker. So you can do simple note taking on the display. You can download books from various sources and read those books on there. There's a calculator on there as well and a few other features. And you can also connect it to your phone. So what happens when you connect a Braille display to your phone is you can type on the display and then your phone will speak out what you are typing. Or you can read on the Braille display what your phone is presenting. So even if you are someone, it doesn't matter if you're deaf, blind, or hard of hearing or whatever, you can also read Braille from the display and just do it all in Braille without the speech if you want. Or if you're just in a meeting or a room where you don't want your phone to be making a lot of noise, a Braille display can be a great option. There are some other newer Braille displays. The Orbits have been updated. So the Orbit 20 Plus is an updated version of the Orbit Reader 20. And it's a 20-cell Braille display. The trade-off, it's a little bit louder than some of the others, and it takes a little bit longer to refresh, but it's also about half the price of other Braille displays. So where the Chameleon is about $1,500 or $1,600, the Orbit Reader 20 Plus is $700, $699. And it can still do basic note-taking. You can connect it to a phone or a computer as well. It kind of has a different type of Braille feel to it. We call it signage quality Braille is what it feels like, the Orbit 20. There's also an Orbit Reader 40 that's coming out now as well, which is a 40-cell Braille display from Orbit Research. And in interest of full disclosure, some of the products, like those Orbits, are ones that we do sell as well. But we always try to give you the best overview, whether it's something that we sell or something that one of the other great tech companies in Michigan or beyond sells. There's a new way as well, speaking of products. Orbit Writer is a $99 Braille keyboard. I'm actually going to hold this up here. This is a Braille keyboard, and it's just a Braille keyboard. Notice there's no display on it. It's just a Braille keyboard. So you have across the top the 6 dots, the 3, 2, 1, a little bit of space, then 4, 5, 6. And then you have the, below that, you kind of have a 5-way navigation thing. You can click around arrow keys or the select, and then below that you have space, dot 7, dot 8. That's the Orbit Writer. So it's like a Braille display, but without the display. So why would you use that? Well, if you want to type in Braille on your phone, but you don't want to have a display, but if you prefer to type in Braille versus typing on a regular QWERTY print keyboard, you can get an Orbit Writer. It's $99. So that's another new way you can go about it. But if none of that works out for you, and you're like, no, I don't want the smartphone, I want a simpler phone. There are some simpler phones that are out there that will do some of the features. There's a phone called the Lucia, which is a simple phone that just does phone and numbers and texts. I believe it's around $300 or so. We have one called the Blind Shell, which is a simple cell phone as well, but it has a few extra features. All of the menus on it talk. It has very tactile and raised buttons, and then you can do phone calls, texts, contacts. You can dial with voice dialing. It also has some other features like a calendar, a calculator, voice recorder, etc., etc. So that's the Blind Shell. So the Blind Shell works with GSM, so it works with AT&T and some other carriers. There are some other simpler phones out there as well. The Capsys phone, I believe, is still available. That's a more enhanced Android phone that has tactile keys and numbers on it as well. So there are some different ways to go. One thing I would definitely caution anyone that's listening about simpler phones is if you go to your local phone store, I know I've said this before, if you go to your local phone store and you say, I need a phone that's going to work for the blind, they've probably never had that question before, or are likely to perhaps give you a phone that might not meet your needs. They'll say, oh, this phone has voice dialing. That'll work. Well, okay, and that feature might work. But what about everything else on the phone? If you have to go into settings and the menus don't talk, to me, that's not a phone that's worth paying attention to. It's not accessible. I really want to focus on a phone that everything's going to talk on it. You don't want to have to keep talking to someone else or asking someone else who can see the phone to figure things out for you. So definitely be careful with that. There's lots of different options out there. iPhone and Android is very learnable for people of all ages. The simpler phones like the Blind Shell are also an option, especially if you want something that doesn't do all the fancy bells and whistles, but still has a good smart or cell phone feel to it. So that's the very fluid thing over time. And we talked a lot about phones. Let's, while we still have a few minutes here, talk about some of the other things that are still running around. One of the things that you can do, of course, is get an assistant. And we've talked about them before. The voice assistants, Alexa, and Google Home. Now I just set off everyone's Amazon things. I'm sorry. Well, there are new Alexas that were just announced. So if you're going to get one now, you might as well get the latest version because it'll get the best updates and things like that. So there's new round versions of the Echo Dot and other Amazon Echoes that were just announced in the past couple weeks. There isn't that much new about them. It's just that they're the latest design, probably a little bit louder than some of the previous ones. The Alexas start at about $50. Same thing with Google. I get asked sometimes, which one should I get? Should I get an Amazon device or a Google device? It doesn't really matter too much. They both do a lot of the same things. Let me highlight a couple features on either side. So Amazon has a feature called Drop-In where you can drop into somebody's room in their house and then have a conversation with them. That can be very useful for talking to people, especially if you have kids. Now, yes, you can turn that off entirely, because for privacy, you might not want that feature on at all or at certain times, so you can turn that feature off. Google has a thing called Broadcast, where you can say, hey, G, broadcast a message, and then it'll ask you what's the message is, and you can say it, and it will play it over all of the Google speakers in the house. So that can be kind of cool as well. A lot of the Echoes, the Amazons, have a headphone jack. So if you wanted to plug it into a bigger speaker, you can do that with the Amazon ones. You cannot do that with the Google devices. You can connect Bluetooth wireless, but not with a headphone jack on the Google devices. One of my favorite Google features is recipe search. So you could say, hey, G, give me a recipe for a macaroni and cheese. And it will find one. It'll find a recipe. And then you can, it will actually talk you through the ingredients and the steps to make the recipe. So it'll actually say, there are 12 ingredients, and I'll list them one at a time. So, and it will tell you, I have the first ingredient, it's a half cup of butter. And then it'll kind of sit there and wait, and you can find that and you can put it in. And then you can say, hey, G, what's the next ingredient? And it will come back and it'll tell you the next ingredient. So that could be really cool. You can also tell the Google Assistant to remember things. So say you have a certain, like a security code or something like that. You want it to remember, you can say, hey, G. When I say G, I'm just saying that for Google. Remember my security code is 12345. And then they'll remember it. And then you can say later, hey, what's my security code? Now, I wouldn't do that with a credit card number or something like that, but for simpler things or, somebody's phone number or something that, you just want to memorize temporarily, it could be a really interesting way to memorize stuff. Amazon has a thing, if you buy their camera versions, so the Amazon Echo Look, or the Amazon Echo Show, the 8-inch or 10-inch Echo Show have a camera on them, and they have a feature called Amazon Echo Show and Tell. So you can wave an item in front of the Amazon, you say, hey, hey lady, what is this thing? Or what am I holding? And then she will actually kind of look for the barcode or take a picture. There's some sort of technology there. You kind of hear it beeps. It kind of tries to line you up with whatever it is. And then she will do her best to tell you what the item is. So that's really cool. So lots of this nifty little advances in accessibility happening over time. A few other things to note. If you're looking for assistance, sometimes the technology that we have can't do everything. And sometimes it is good to have a pair of eyes to help read some certain information or like tell you what is a thermostat at, things like that. Well, Aira is one of the services that is out there that provides visual assistance by trained agents. Now, you need an iPhone or an Android device to do this. You used to be able to get glasses too, but you can't do that anymore. Now you have to have an iPhone or Android. And one thing that's worth noting is that you can get free 5-minute calls with Aira. You don't have to have a paid plan. You can get one free call a day. You used to be able to get as many free calls as you wanted, and they now realize that that was a bit too much. But you can still get one free call a day of 5 minutes for Aira. You can call them up and ask them for whatever, and they will try to help you out. They also have other offers available if you have JAWS questions, or if you are a small business owner, if you are in certain locations, such as Walmart until the end of 2020, for instance, or Meijer here in Michigan. You can get free visual assistance with Aira. So that's spelled A-I-R-A. You can download that app on either iPhone or Android. Another one that's out there is called Be My Eyes. Be My Eyes is a network of volunteers, but now there's also what's called specialized help. So if you open the Be My Eyes app, you can say, connect to the first available volunteer, and it will connect you with a random person around the world that speaks your language, and you can ask them questions. Now, I wouldn't show them, again, personal sensitive information. I wouldn't have them read a credit card. But for simple stuff, it's a great tool. But Be My Eyes also now has a thing called specialized help, which you can use to contact them and contact specific companies. So Microsoft is on specialized help, and so is Google. So is the NFB and ACB as far as consumer organizations. And then there's even more specialized help for instance, Clear Blue, which makes pregnancy tests. That's something that, well, if you're using a pregnancy test, you might not want someone else to have to read your results. Well, now you can call up an anonymous line and have them do it for you. So there are more and more brands coming on this specialized help on Be My Eyes, and they're all free. So you can look through there and find something that fits you, and you can connect and talk to specialized people. Some of them are limited to certain hours of the day, but I still think they can be very useful. Of course, if you also wish to volunteer as a sighted volunteer on Be My Eyes, you can download the app on iOS or Android, and you can become one as well. So that's possible. Not a lot going on the computer side as far as screen readers. Worth noting that you don't have to spend $900 now to get JAWS. You can do an annual plan for $100 a year, essentially, and get JAWS. Or Zoom text, depending on what you want to do for screen reading or magnification. So you don't have to pay $1,000 anymore. And I think it's worth keeping up to date with your screen reader. There's actually two more great free options. NVDA, non-visual desktop access, is still a great screen reader. They've been adding a lot over the past few years, and it really has come into its own as a really viable screen reading option. Windows Narrator. Windows Narrator has come a long, long way. They actually hired a lot of the former people that used to work at GW Micro and other companies. They brought in a lot of accessibility veterans, and Narrator has come a long way now. You can now use it to read email in Microsoft Outlook, read web pages with Chrome or Edge or Firefox, read all your Microsoft Word stuff, and much, much more. So Narrator's on every Windows 10 machine. Of course, the ones with the latest updates will have the most features. If you walk up to any Windows 10 computer, though, you can press Control Windows Enter, and Narrator will come on and start talking. So really cool. It's come a long way, and I'm very happy to see another free option. If you're on the Mac, VoiceOver is still a thing. It's been getting sporadic updates over time. I'm not sure if they've kept up as much lately as far as updates, so I'm kind of see where that goes. It still works just fine. I know some users would like it to see it do more, but I think the gap now, the built-in screen readers, Narrator on Windows, pretty much can do mostly what you need now, or get NVDA or get JAWS. There's new Apple Watches that are out there. So Apple Watch version 6 was just announced recently, and one of the interesting things about that is the measurement of blood oxygen levels. So you already could have fall detection with your Apple Watch, and now if you got Apple Watch 6, you also get the measurement of blood oxygen levels. So there's some really interesting medical things that you can do with the Apple Watch. You can get them now too. You can get one that is just connected to your phone, or you can get one that is connected to a data plan, so you can go out for a run with it, and then when you come back home, you connect it back to your phone. So the Apple Watch, just like the iPhone, is completely accessible with VoiceOver or even vibration and haptics if you want to do it that way. Android watches, not so much. It's still kind of, it's not working so well. Smart TVs have come a long way over the past couple years, and most new TVs, if you buy them now, you can make them talk in some sort of way. Same goes with cable boxes. Same goes with things like Roku and Amazon Fire TV or Android TV or the NVIDIA Shield. There's a lot more things now that if you buy them, they will talk out of the box. Some better than others, but they certainly will do that. One of the really good resources that I'm proud to be a part of is AFB's Access World magazine. We do a lot of reviews of these types of things as they come out, whether it's smart TVs or, say, the Amazon Alexa microwave that came out a year ago, or the convection oven. Lots of different things that you can check out over there at afb.org/AW. It's afb.org/AW. As far as TVs, I would recommend either things that are running a TV that's running Amazon's Fire OS is good for that. The Samsung TVs have a really good level of accessibility from what we've been hearing. And then if you have cable, so if you have Comcast, if you have Spectrum, or something else, you can request a cable box now that talks. So if you don't have a talking cable box, you shouldn't have to pay more or go to a higher plan to get that. You can just get that cable box. It will talk and it will work with you. It's been a crazy year, this 2020, but we're still happy to be with you and talk about technology. Obviously, you can't cover everything in 45 minutes. But hopefully we give you a few ideas of things that are out there. So if you have more questions, if you want more information, anything that I've talked about or anything else, you can email me at jj@atguys.com. So that's jj@atguys.com. That's the best way to email. The website where we sell stuff is at atguys.com, and we have a separate vendor presentation for that over in the hall. I do encourage you to go visit all the other vendors that are here at the Virtual Visions 2020. Lots of great vendors and lots of great videos to watch. You can learn about all the new technologies that are out there and other stuff as well. Thank you so much. Thanks to the Ann Arbor District Library for hosting Visions and doing such an awesome job given our circumstances. And we hope we are back again in person sometime very soon. Have a great day, everybody.